Welcome everyone, live at the Nutmeg Tavern. Welcome, come on in, have a seat in the virtual tavern here. I'm your host, John Townsend, and we'll be discussing lots of fun 18th century stuff today, whether it's historical or has to do with the YouTube channel. Pretty much anything is on the table. Ryan is...
Hello.
What is that hat you're wearing, Ryan? Oh, well, anyway, there we go. I thought he had like a winter cap on or something, but he doesn't.
It's just my normal hat.
And behind the console is Aaron.
Hey everyone.
There he is. He's making all that technical stuff happen,
Yeah.
or not happen, as the case may be, because, well, the internet is being the internet. This afternoon.
I do want to say real quick, we did have one donation that we missed last week that someone sent in right at the end. So you want to get that real quick?
You go ahead and read it.
Okay. This is from Fleur du Fleuve.
Good
Please
job,
research
Aaron.
and do a future episode on tavern commissions such as the tavern in Clarence, New York. Thank you so much. It was
you.
right after we...
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What tavern commissions did she say? Or
Yeah.
they say? Okay. Tavern. Okay. Sounds like an interesting topic. Because tavern stuff is always fun. So today I
People
thought,
are already giving me money for the bartender. Thank you so much.
yeah, well,
John, if you say it's for the bartender, John lets me take it home.
no.
Harshman Hill sends in the super chat. Coin for the bartender. And David L. super chat. Thank you for everything you're doing, including interviews with people of color like Emma Vernon and showing their perspective and experience in the 18th century.
Mm-hmm.
It would be great if you did more. Thank you so much.
Oh,
We
yeah.
really appreciate you commenting.
Yeah, you gotta find the right folks for that, and when we find them, we like to bring them on the channel. Whether it's any of those kind of situations. Topic today: the Diary of Matthew Patten. This is he was Bedford, New Hampshire. He does this diary from 1754 to 1788. So he's covering a long time period here, and he is in southern New Hampshire, sort of just across the border from Massachusetts. And this diary is fascinating because of the kinds of things it covers. Now, it does not cover. It's not like Nicholas Creswell's journal is in a diary format where he's talking about each and every day and the thing he does, and then he talks about how he feels about it. Matthew Patten doesn't talk about how he feels about a thing. It's more almost like business transactions going on. He does talk about his family at times, but he's not saying things about them. He doesn't talk about the foods he eats necessarily, but he certainly talks about all the different business things he does during the day, and sort of the different commerce that's going on, the items that they're buying, and sort of the complexity of doing commerce in a situation where there is not a lot of free currency floating around. There's, not just everybody doesn't have, you go to the bank and get money or have a ATM card. What happens when you don't have access to either one of those things? You don't have, digital money, and you don't even have sort of paper money to any great extent. And so it complicates commerce, and you see that going on within these diaries, within this diary, and you can see there's a lot to this book. I wasn't going to read a ton of it, but I thought I would read just a couple of pieces to give us an idea.
I'm going to interrupt you
Yeah.
real quick. Are you drinking Cherry Bounce?
Yes, we have the drink from how many episodes ago was it?
2 or somewhere in there.
Hold on. Sometimes that happens. Wasn't ready for that one. Yes, we have Cherry Bounce from the actual episode.
And is that the thing sitting on the shelf
Yeah.
downstairs?
Right.
Yeah.
I can't believe you just drank it.
We've been watching it. We've been watching it percolate.
Yeah, it had a little something in it.
Yeah. It's been doing it's been working hard. That's what we'll say.
Should we show it?
Yeah.
If you'd like, sure.
We got it.
So there's the It's got some sediment in it, and
I need to grab it from
it's
you.
doing some stuff. It's got a nice color though to it.
Because I haven't tried this batch yet.
Well, there you go. I watered mine down, and still it got me.
You put water in it today?
Just in my glass.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not drinking that stuff full strength. I mean, I want to be able to, walk again someday.
Nutmeg Tavern, gonna have to wipe out some of these mugs. I think.
I don't know who's in charge of that. He has to look through all of them, look in the bottom of them. No, that one's no.
Well, they just get dusty.
Dusty.
Don't worry, there's no vermin climbing in the mugs in the Nutmeg Tavern.
Yeah, that's why we store them upside down. Here's the 9th. He says, I bought 5 pounds of sugar, 1.5 pounds of logwood from George Duncan, and paid him for them, and 2 shillings 8 pence that I owed him on account of a quire of paper amounting in the whole to 4 pounds, and I came home in the evening. And that's all he did that day. The 10th, I went in the forenoon to Hugh Riddle's and notified his sons to go to Halifax as they were enlisted. And I bought 5 pounds of butter from Mrs. Riddle for $0.50, but did not get it. So apparently he's going to get it later. I paid her the money, all but a copper, so like 1 pence, and I returned Daniel McKinney's 40 shillings out of 3 pounds he had given me to pay for the recording of his deed from Fergus Kennedy. And I settled Janet Wallace for what I did in her case as an evidence, being 10 days being 10 days. So I got to kind of explain this because it gets, well, I'll keep reading and then I'll explain. Being 10 days. I allowed 3 days. Her brother William helped me, viz. 2 a reaping and 1 a mowing at home, and allowed a day for what he did at my hay in the little meadow, and a day her brother James mowed for me at home, being 5 days in whole. And the other 5, I charged her 15 pounds. I charged her 3 pounds for a copy of the case and 20 shillings for going to her father's and acknowledging a power of attorney from her to Lieutenant Wallace, amounting besides the 5 days her brothers helped me to 19 pounds. Talk about complicated. And I received 15 pounds, 10 shillings of it, and the remainder is yet due to be paid by spinning. So the debt was, he accounted for it in days, and then it's like so many days labor, right? And then some of her relatives did this amount for that day and that amount for another day, so he added it all up and he got 5 days, and then he turned the other days into money, and then they're not going to be money, they're going to be spinning. On the 11th, my wife and I went to Londonderry. I had James Scott's horse all the time. I don't know that he has a riding horse, so he's constantly borrowing horses from different people to go places. The 14th, my wife and I came home again. On the 13th, I carried my cloth to James Mill Timber to get it made on the 12th. I don't understand that part, except that they're buying cloth and then they're giving it to somebody else to turn into a particular item. We're going to skip to a different year. I'm not sure what month this is.
Why don't you read the title of this one more time?
Yeah. So we're doing short excerpts from the Diary of Matthew Patten, Bedford, New Hampshire. This is it's between 1754 and 1788.
I'm going to drop that in the chat if anyone wants to take a look at it.
Right, you can take a look at
to our
that
website.
book. It's highly readable in that this was probably originally written down as a manuscript, but in the early 20th century, they went through and transcribed it, so it's very, very readable compared to what it was in the 18th century. Let's see, here we go. On the 2nd, I finished about 11 o'clock, and then I planned the river through. Let me skip to this other part. He does a lot of surveying. Not only does he write out legal items that he's doing for things or court cases that come up, sort of small claimsy things happening. And then at times he's doing writs. I think sometimes he's just copying legal documents for people because, I mean, they didn't have photocopiers, right? So you get a hand write out. And then other times he's probably writing things out fair. So to write out legal documents in very nice handwriting so that they can, I don't know, so that the court can actually read them. So he does a lot of those kinds of things, but he's doing other items here. Let's see. My wife let my brother's wife have $1, and I bought a bushel of salt from Hugh Orr and paid him 30 shillings Bay Old Tenor for it. I'm not sure what he means by Bay Old Tenor, but there's two different kinds of currency that's floating around: Old Tenor and New Tenor. One being sort of they've devalued it, but there's a lot of Old Tenor stuff going on here. On the 5th, I paid Stephen French 3 shillings 1 penny Old Tenor for a musquash skin, probably a muskrat skin, for a musquash skin I had from him last spring. So this is like 6 months later, and he's finally paying somebody for a muskrat skin. So the 6th, I sent Thomas Hey, no.
It's a great sentence.
I know.
6 months later, he's finally paying for that muskrat skin.
Yes. On the 6th, I sent Thomas Wallace 4 pistareens, yet another type of currency, to Susie for a bushel of onions I had from him on the 7th of last October. That's probably, again, at least 6 months ago. I paid Matthew Little $2 on a note and a pistareen of interest. The interest came near to $0.25, but he would take no more. I broke up and had Benjamin McAllister and his father 4 oxen and John McAllister's oxen and my 4 brothers' oxen. When he says I broke up, he means he's probably breaking up the sod he's plowing. So he's using some of his father's oxen and borrowed oxen from somebody else, even though he has his own. On the 9th, I had Benjamin McAllister and his, he's having people help him out some more. I gave Benjamin 2 pistareens for himself. On the 11th, I took 2 bushels of corn and 2 of rye to Lieutenant Moore's mill and got them ground, and went to Hugh Ramsey's and fitted his horse cart. On the 12th, I set out for Boston and got to Billerica and lodged at the Pollards, just somebody's house along the way. And this happens a lot. He talks about, on the 16th, I got a side of sole leather from Pollard on credit. It weighed 14 pounds, but he charged only 13 3/4 at 8 shillings per pound. I don't know what. So here he was buying sole leather, and if we go to the next day, not the next day, the next page here.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Somebody's asking if Old Tenor from the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Was that what he was saying?
Probably. That's probably what he means by bay. On the 25th, then, he says, John and Jamie worked at the bridge by Major Joffs, and I spent the day with Captain Walker at Widow Barron's to apprise the estate. But Mr. Hutchinson did not come. And then new section, Alex Stewart and Alifet Durston came to our house to make shoes. And that's an example of, it's like there you are in New Hampshire in 1780 and your shoes have worn out. What do? Well, the shoe guy comes around and he stays there at your house a couple days and he makes shoes for your family. He talks about that happening quite regularly, and probably because the shoes are not lasting very long. It would be interesting to go through this and sort of do all the math. There are so many different things you could do with a book like this. Break out the items he's talking about purchasing. He's always talking about purchasing sugar and butter. He's purchasing lots of grains to get ground, and each time he's like, I purchased this much corn, and then a few days later I took it to the mill to be ground. Sometimes he has to take it to other people's mills because one's broken or it doesn't have water. but like, how often does the shoe guy come around? So there's all these different sorts of very interesting things you can sort of tease out of this text. It reminds me a lot of the Martha Ballard diaries that turn into the book called The Midwife's Tale. I think the author's Thatcher. Again, it's one of those hard to necessarily interpret right away. Interesting to read and see what's going on, but until you sort of put these ideas together and stretch them out and look what's going on, then you can start to see things sort of stack up. But it's one of those, it takes some real interesting sort of study. But just even on the face of it, very interesting things are happening.
All right, we got some catching up to do here on my end. Martin is in the chat, and he said, I'm just so happy that I've managed to tune in for something live. Kind of hard if you're from Sweden and follow American channels. It's good to have you, Martin.
Right.
Thanks for being here.
Right. It's probably midnight there or something.
Harshman Hills, we read that one? Yeah, Coin for the Bartender? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to read it again. Ryan Mercer, I came, I saw, I donated. Thank you. Aaron Howitt, Coin for Aaron. Oh, come on.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Mike Crook, for those in the time vortex, thanks for helping us connect with the past. Dax Ripper, discovered your channel a couple months ago and haven't stopped watching your videos since. My girlfriend and I love the channel. Keep going. We love you.
Oh,
Wow,
great.
thank you so much.
Great.
Striving for the simple life. It comes in super chat. Buy a glass on me.
Yeah.
All right.
There we go.
Round for the house. Everybody in chat. There we go. Space Birch. I'm trying to get a bunch of friends together to have 18th century 12th night dinner. If things calm down by January, thanks to your videos. Man, isn't that crazy?
I'm hoping.
Yeah, thanks so much. That's a cool idea, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Joe Sereno, another coin for you, John. Keep up the Irie vibes. Doggo Man, grandfather's journals uploaded, email soon, Wi-Fi bad. Hey, thanks so much.
Yeah. Excited. Yes.
We were just talking about that earlier today.
Yes, we were.
Susan T, hailing from Utah. She's very excited about that. Exclamation point. How do I get one of those red and green mugs from the lanterns? Oh, with the lanterns. P.S. I love your videos. Thank you for being a quality family channel. We still have some of those, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want to put a link in the chat or
You got that there? Thanks.
I got you.
there we go. Yeah. I think we still have all of these. A few of
Great.
these guys. So if you're interested in, there's the throwback logo mug with that's chestnut and green, and the root beer float, which has got a Nutmeg Tavern design on it, and this really cool matte black Nutmeg Tavern mug. If you're interested, if you want to join us, cheers as we enjoy the Nutmeg Tavern.
Yeah. AC is in Super Chat. Love the cabin videos. Being summer, is there much information on unusual things people did to stay cool during extremely hot months? I imagine a cabin would be quite a hot box. AC, it's hot in that cabin, let me tell you.
It could be. Sometimes it is bad.
Well, when we're in there and we're hot, and they're like, hey, let's make a fire.
Yeah, well, that's...
Yeah.
But the fireplace draws so well that it sucks all the heat right up out of the chimney. We don't have to worry about heat now.
When you're outside enough, you're used to it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and they went swimming. And the cabin isn't as bad as you. It's got a dirt floor, so that kind of stays cool-ish.
Yeah.
Martin Johnson, how do I get this to work?
I think they got it to work.
All right. Cyani sent in a donation without a comment. Thank you very much for that. Speed of Style Tony, love the new clothing. What years would it be from?
Checked shirts, common throughout the time period, not necessarily, like a working man's shirt many times. The waistcoat here is an 1805 with the sort of stand-up kind of collar thing going on, and it's shorter. You can't see that part, but it's only right at the waist. So it's a early 19th century, late 18th century style of waistcoat.
History with Brad comes in on Super Chat.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, so I put that link in the chat. I'll drop it in again. But it's a really cool book. Some questions that came in during that. Oh, gosh, which the journal. Oh, here's one. The journal Nicholas Cresswell makes many entries about people he dined with, in quotations. Was he dining at taverns or in inns or just meeting friendly people along the way?
I think both of that is going on. I think there are references to him eating at ordinaries or taverns in some situations, and a lot of times he's eating over at particular people's houses. And it seemed like at certain levels of society, that's just what they did, like, all the time. So wherever he was kind of sitting there, in sort of the middle upper, possibly, not necessarily because he had money, but they could tell he was educated person, etc. And probably some of that was sort of, brain picking. What's it like back in England right now? And it was very, very, there was a lot of kind of question marks about. So people would invite him over and figure out what was going on.
Somebody else asked if you're going over a lot of the tender stuff there. Did they pay interests?
Well, there was the one reference to the borrowed money and him paying interest on that, and the person, interest would have come out to be a certain amount, and the guy didn't ask for all of it. So I think there's a lot of, if it's not a strictly it seems like if it was, I was supposed to pay for this, I bought a particular thing and I was going to pay for it in the future, then, maybe there doesn't seem to be any interest in it. But if it's I borrowed 10 pounds from this guy, and it's written up sort of more officially as a note, then there's a certain amount of interest that is accruing. I think it really depends on the kind of transaction that's happening. It doesn't look like if it's like, oh, I got, 10 pounds of butter from this family and I paid for it 6 months later. That doesn't seem to really jive. And I think there were so many cross transactions going on that it was just easier not to bother, especially since they kind of owed each other things, right?
Somebody just said, well, two things. One, somebody did a word search, a Google search for tricorn, and you were in the 5 of the 16 images, which is really funny. But somebody else is asking about the origin of the trend of the tricorn, actual purposes, and how long it stuck around.
Yeah, so people ask this question, kind of comes up often. The term tricorn isn't necessarily very much of an 18th century term. It might show up occasionally, but most of the time they call them cocked hats. And whenever you bring a side up, that's called cocking your hat. And if it has 3 sides, then that's what it is. I'm not sure. I believe the original purpose is to show off your wig, show off your fancy hair. And if the hats in the 17th century, the Cavalier hats are huge brimmed hats. They cover up all this fancy hair that they had. And so show that off. Somebody started to bring the sides up, and then, of course, it became the fashion. And because other than that, they are not very useful. There's no great amount of...
it's terrible to walk through the woods in a tricorn.
Right, yeah. They're terrible utility-wise. Why would you do this?
And you get the most awkward side face, sunburn.
Yeah, right.
The middle of your face.
There is some goofy sense to having the front up like this at times, because it gets out of your way and you can see things, but that's about it. And of course, the tricorn is the opposite of that. You bring up the corn and then you have this. Anyway.
I want to write that down as the thumbnail.
So Conrad Rube just ordered a mug. Thank you so much. Aaron Howitt asks, how many employees are at Townsends?
So there's a lot. Yeah. There are people that are in customer service that answer telephones, and there's shipping people, and there's a lot of people that sew clothing. So all told, might be 30 people. A lot of them are part-time, and they sew clothes at home.
Yeah, the day-to-day folks here
Yeah.
Was that 8 to 12? Depending on the day.
Only if people are in the upstairs sewing.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Maximum.
So normally it's like 7 people in the
Yeah.
room.
Sure. Okay. How prevalent was barter?
There's a lot of barter going on in the Matthew Patton book. They may at times sort of use the concept of money as the way to, negotiate what is worth what, right? But yeah, a lot of different kinds of barter are going on, especially, the borrowing of equipment or animals. And then, sometimes we might not know what, because he doesn't need to account for it as much. I mean, a lot of this is him probably writing these things down so he can remember, oh yeah, yes, I did borrow X from whatever, and now now I remember I need to pay for that Musquatch skin, right? So, I mean, actually, I was thinking about it just this afternoon while I was reading it. I was thinking, it'd be really handy if I had one of these for myself. Don't forget to do, this day we shot this video. Because I look back and it's like, I think it was in 2017. I can't remember any of that stuff. But yes, lots of different kinds of barter and borrowing going on.
Tyler just said, I made sure I bounced 2 weeks ago. There is a white fluff floating in it. Is that the same sediment at the bottom of yours?
I don't know. I would say that if the white fluff is like little bubbles, no problem. If the white fluff is like, that's a weird fungus, out she goes.
I think that if
real quick, your mic is dead.
Mine?
Yeah, so I might have to hook something else up for you.
Okay.
Try the little button on the cord. Follow that cord.
John, what's a cord? You don't know what that is.
A cord. It's
You
like a
don't know what I'm talking
string.
about.
Is that better?
It's like a string.
Check.
Nah. Keep talking, John. We'll get it figured out.
I'll just keep talking. If you want, there's a case that says.
You talk.
Ryan, tell me something else I need to talk
He can't
about.
tell you anything else. His mic doesn't.
I can talk real loud.
I can talk real loud.
So porcelain plates versus pewter plates versus redware stoneware. What was happening in the 18th century?
Okay, so the question was plates, porcelain. He's probably meaning also pottery plates, metal plates, and you said pewter, and what was the other one?
I said pottery, porcelain.
Okay. As with so many of these other, whether it's plates, whether it's mugs, there certainly is this hierarchy of expensive, cheap. So like today we would say, is it a plastic plate? Is it a silver plate? Nobody has a silver plate. Is it a fancy china plate? So the porcelain china style, very, very complicated, or very, very, let's say, fancy decorated things. They're kind of at the high end. You might have silver plate above them. So you've actually got metal, not just plated metal, but actual silver up at the top. And then you've got these expensive imported porcelain plates. Some of them kind of, next step down. I'm not sure exactly whether the ones that are produced in Great Britain as porcelain were more expensive or less expensive than ones imported from China. Super good question, and I don't have the answer to that. Pewter, wood, those are way down there on the list of is this worth it, or is this going to be an expensive item? So, yeah, there's certainly a bunch of gradations of, and if you want, probably the wooden thing is at the very bottom, and above the wooden thing, probably lower than pewter, would be like a redware plate, which is very inexpensive but very easily broken. So there's all these kind of pluses and minuses. There's a reason why there's this gradation going on there.
Okay.
Good.
Someone's asking. Check. Can you hear me?
No. I don't know what's going on.
Oh no.
Keep going.
How do you make fishing rods
There we go,
in the
there we
18th century?
Fishing rods.
Yeah.
I believe if you look in Diderot's or some of the other encyclopedias, you'll see very, very similar cane poles that snap together or have different segmented joints. But I believe a lot of fishing gear is sort of made up impromptu out of really long sticks, if it isn't sort of more on that professional side. So you'll read in journals like Nicholas Cresswell and other situations where they talk about just bringing with them line and hooks. So they're either using a hand line or they're just cutting whatever long pole they can get a hold of so they can do fishing wherever they're at. Bringing along fishing pole is difficult in a travel situation.
Even as high up as George Washington. He said that his fishing
That's
gear
right.
His lines were in his canteen.
That's right.
His lunch pail. So, all right, we've got some super chat stuff. Matthew H. Like how we have potato chips and such. What were some popular snack foods in the 18th century?
What was the one I was thinking of the other day? So, fried oysters was, I think, one of those kind of street food, cheap, items. There was one that kind of popped in my head, and it's gone now. I'll do some more research about that one. Cheap street food.
William Poole says, new here, loved the mushroom ketchup video.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. Eagle Ridge Homestead, thank you for keeping this history alive and educating us. History with Brad on Super Chat again. Will there be more tool making videos?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're going to see. You're going to see.
Monday.
Yeah, Monday. We're going to be making a tool to make tools. Again, super important piece, and it turned out so nice. I was really excited about that one, and we'll be shooting more using those kinds of things on Monday, Tuesday. So we got lots in the hopper, whether it's food episodes coming up and some of these tools to make tools and using those tools.
People are commenting snack foods. How about popcorn and fritters and things like that?
Yeah, gingerbread is another one that pops up as a street food. In fairs, you'll see like sausage stands. So it's like a hot dog stand. Of course, they didn't have hot dogs, but sausage stand. Gingerbread was a big one. So sometimes they're just ginger nuts or like hard, like jawbreakers, but gingerbread. I'm not sure about the concept of, what was it you were saying, like elephant ears, right? Funnel cakey kind of things.
Uh-huh.
That has, you got to have like hot fat boiling. We've kind of figured that out in the 20th, 21st century, but I don't think that's nearly as easy in this time period. So I'm not sure if you're going to see that as street food.
Marcus is in the chat. Says, hello, Mr. Town Green from Brazil. Last week I made some of your ginger beer, and it was delicious. Great work.
Great.
Somebody asked what jail food was like.
So depends on where you're at and what kind of jail. Jail is a lot different in the 18th century, and it was really bad, I guess, to say it. It's going to be a lot like military rations, but less than. And there are some cases where in certain kinds of prisons, maybe debtors' prisons, and even in other kinds of prisons, you got to pay for your food. You might get very, very minimal rations if you don't pay for your food, but you do have the chance of saying, I'm gonna buy this or that if you have funds available to you. And there are some circumstances where you weren't going to give it anything. If you couldn't find someone to pay for your food, you were just going to starve. So prison food is a difficult topic, and of course that's changing through the 18th century, and it can be different in North America than it was in Great Britain.
One of the next super chats is from Jacob White, and they're asking about jail conditions as well. What did that look like? Fast food.
Past food.
Yes.
Is if it's a local jail, it's not bad. And you'll see, like Martha Ballard talks about her husband being put in jail because he was a tax collector and people didn't pay their taxes, and so he went to jail. And in his circumstance, and in some like debtor's prison situations, either here or in Great Britain, you could get out during the day. So it's like, you just make sure you're back by 5 o'clock, or you could, and maybe you couldn't go a long way away, but you needed to stay within 6 or 8 blocks, maybe a half a mile of the prison. Don't go to the next county or anything like that. And then there are other situations where jail is just as bad as you can possibly imagine it. After the Revolutionary War, Great Britain didn't know what to do with their convicts that they were sending over as indentured servants to North America, and they came up with the prison ship system where they put people on rotting prison hulks, and it was, again, just about as bad as you can imagine.
Aaron Howitt, more coin for Aaron for fixing the sound. Thank you. Mandatory Carry comes in on Super Chat with the hashtag Keep Fighting. Sue O'Connor.
Sue.
Super Chat. Just ordered an on sale bed gown. Oh, yeah. Wondering when more fabric choices might be available. I know the plague has thrown the things into chaos.
So Ivy has been working on a lot of those items, those kind of one-off items.
This is the email sale.
Oh, it's the email sale. Okay, good. And the new fabrics, we got actually a batch of brand new block printed fabric is on the ship right now. So we should be seeing some new fabrics very soon.
Yeah, and I think we got a bunch of new stuff in February. Was it January,
Maybe.
February,
Maybe,
there?
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to go to the Fabric Swatch website.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard to keep updated photos on the website every time we get a new block print in. It's just like they vary so much. So make sure to check that website out.
Yeah.
David Clausen on Super Chat with a donation but no comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Amber Crystal Daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Beverages and snack foods for cabin crew. Also, were pasties or turnovers street food. How about roasted nuts?
I don't know. I do
It's
not
really hard
know.
to tell that
I
stuff
do not know.
because-
I mean, you'll see like bread carts, but nuts. Now, being carried around, those people, like we were talking about on Wednesday's live stream, where the noisy people in the street and they were selling different items. There were a lot of food things that were being carried, muffins, and people selling fruit like raspberries or whatnot. Mulberries was a common one. They even had special little baskets, and you bought the basket and the berries, a little pottle basket. So yeah, but nuts. Probably, and we think about that roasted chestnut thing. We know it's from the mid 19th century. How early that goes? That'd be a great question.
Adam Asmar in the super chat. For the urban student worker, what would their daily lunchbox look like in the 18th century?
Urban what?
Student/worker.
Lunchbox. I think they always went out to the local tavern. Just the same way you'll hear that some of the wages, especially for apprentices and I think they had to change the law on that. Their wages were paid partially in small beer or in beer, and it was probably a, go out and get your food. Undoubtedly, some people probably, brought in things. We would think them completely unsanitary. It's like, well, last night's pork chop, here it is in my pocket. That sort of thing.
I have no problem with that. My wife gets mad at me for not refrigerating leftovers all the time.
Right, and if you check his pockets, there's probably a pork chop in there now.
Okay. Somebody just put in the chat Hot Pockets. I don't know if that was a joke about Hot Pockets as modern food or pork chops in the pocket.
Pork chop in your pocket.
So on the questions, how did... Oh, I already did. I'm thinking of starting woodworking. And we'll probably buy the Townsends spool bowl carving kit. Any advice?
It's a good place to start. I would definitely suggest some. Generally on those, it's good to have. You almost need to start with the axe, right? So you need the axe to start to get your item down into its starting block, and that's what we use. Get out the axe and chop the item up into place. Maybe even use it to chop down your tree. Generally, you'll want to find some wood that's going to be very, very nice to you to start off. So something like basswood, super easy. Not terribly strong, not terribly useful, but you want to start off with something easy. So basswood is a great wood for that, or tulip I found is another nice. It's a green. If you want to use it green, and it'll cut very, very nicely. And once you've kind of figured out how to work those items, then you can move on to much tougher woods to work with.
This is a nice comment. Brian Miller, my family and I are just discovering this channel. What a blessing it is to have a wholesome channel to watch and learn together. Thank you, Townsends.
Thank you.
Oh, that was a really kind comment. Thank you.
Yeah, we have... Go ahead.
No, please.
Yeah, from the start, we tried to make this channel as family friendly as we can, but yet not create content that was just for 8-year-olds. This is meant for adults, but there's no reason why kids can't have fun watching and learning for what we do and what we're interested in.
I'd like to see a video on the different language. I'd like to see a video on the differences in language between 18th and 21st century English. Me too.
Yeah, it's a deep study. There's a lot of different work that's been done on that in the last 50 and 100 years. There's some really interesting thoughts. I've read several different pieces. Even the book Albion's Seed talks about the different language things that are going on within America now and their roots as they go back to different areas in Great Britain. Fascinating study, because we think about say the accent for the southern states, and of course that varies obviously from where you're at. The Northeast accent, the Midwestern kind of flat middle accent. Those all they all have sort of really, really interesting roots as they go back, and we think, oh, they just happened because of. But no, there's some really interesting roots to that. And in Albion's Seed, he kind of digs into those. He talks about specific words and specific sounds. I highly recommend the book, and it really helps us understand, the America that we live in today.
John Schmonsees on Super Chat. What was the design of the bar on your set based on, and how difficult to build? Are there designs available?
There are no designs available that I know of. There may be somebody has done that online. Basically, I just go online and look at the, as many period examples as I can find. Now, there's only so many that are still the way they were in the 18th centuries. A lot of times, a tavern or some place that would have a bar like that, of course, would be remodeled 2 or 3 or 10 times between the 18th century and now. So you got to do the digging to find the places that still have the original and to see what those were like. And you can also look at artwork from the time period to get an idea about what those looked like, and not terribly difficult to build. I mean, they weren't trying to keep out master thieves, right? They just wanted to have a way that people couldn't just quickly reach in and get things that they weren't supposed to. So it's but it's fun. I like it.
Yeah, I feel like we had a Pinterest board of a bunch of paintings, and we just looked for the ones that seemed practical enough for us
Doable.
to build. And yeah, right. So.
And it was a set that it didn't look right until it was completely done. The whole time we were building, it was like, what is this?
Yeah, what is this going to look like?
And then it was like, boom, got it.
Yep.
Right before we went live.
Down to making tiles for the fireplace and everything.
Yeah, we're going live in 2 hours, and John was still
Quick.
It was fun, and I think when John was doing that, I was working on this shelf with the pegs.
Yep.
And we just pulled those things out, like pieces from different paintings that we liked, and there was a pegged shelf that had a checkerboard on it. I thought, man, I'm going to make that. That looks cool. So, yeah.
I love it. Turned out great.
Lisa Kilmer sends in a super chat. Thank you so much. What was the drinking age on the 18th century?
There wasn't one. You'll hear about, it's not uncommon to hear about children drinking small beer. Now, small beer is very low alcoholic content, but, medicinally, brandy was used, and there was really no reference to any of that sort of thing. You'll even see the occasional reference to children young getting drunk, and they're not being very happy about that.
Like the 13-year-old sailors.
Yeah.
That stuff's wild. It's like, wait, you would let 13-year-olds drink? Wait, you let 13-year-olds be sailors?
Right. Really, the idea of drinking age, that's a very 20th century kind of concept. At least, there's this the temperance movement that comes in the 19th century in America. Really is very, very different, even from the entire rest of the world. So, even today. So, yeah, they didn't have much of that.
Okay. So I have 2 super chats that just came in, but first I would like to hear about that cherry bounce that you're drinking over there. What do you like? What are you tasting? What are people going to taste at home?
Well, I think the nutmeg helped.
The you just put in? Is that what I heard?
Yeah. It's got that. It does have just a great cherry flavor. There is that hint of the fermentation going on with that, and then we've got the brandy underneath all that. Of course, I watered mine down a little bit because we need to be able to talk.
I'm different than John. I think it's too sweet for me.
Oh, I'll see. That doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, and it's for me. It's like it either needs more water or less sugar and more booze. For me.
Well, and if the yeast had taken off the way it probably should have, then it would have eaten up that sweetness.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, John Tallies on Super Chat. Whose idea was it to shove the bartender in the corner and put him behind the bars?
I think it was the bartenders.
No, I think it was yours.
Mine?
We were going to build a bar, but not have anybody back here, right? We were just going to have it part of the set.
Right. And
Yeah.
I fought for having Ryan behind bars.
Yeah.
Where he
Filled my
belongs.
heart with joy.
Matthew H. is in Super Chat. So when should we expect an episode on snack foods? Haha. Also, did you ever find info for the guy in the 18th century showing foods from the 13th?
Well, I know I've got it in my library, and it's just a matter of it's got a strange. It doesn't have an obvious name to it. Okay, 2 cookbooks, 13th century.
I'm moving on. John's writing that down.
I even wrote down snacks in the 18th century.
Okay. Aaron Howitt, she comes in with a super chat. Thoughts on doing a video collab about 18th century clothing with someone like Abby Cox?
I am not terribly familiar, so I don't know. I mean, there's always a kind of possibility for that sort of thing. We're always kind of on the lookout, but there's always that making things work out. It can be difficult, especially now.
The word collaboration excites us.
Yes.
But then we have to execute, and
Yes.
that can be really difficult.
Yeah.
Clinton Mann in Super Chat, was chili a thing in the 18th century?
Depends on what you call chili. Even today, we have chili battles about what chili is, right? If we're talking about
Politicians' answer.
it's true. Some people are like chili doesn't have beans in it. What are you talking about?
Or noodles. Those weirdos that put noodles in their chili.
That's not chili. That's not chili.
South of the Mason-Dixon, it's hard to find chili that doesn't have noodles in it.
Really?
At least in Kentucky, and I think through Tennessee. It's a big thing in Cincinnati. You guys are going to all prove me wrong. I grew up in Kentucky, and I never saw a noodle. We'll see what happens here.
So no, I mean, a lot of times we base chili. One of the main chili things is going on is it's got some sort of tomato going on in there. No, nothing like that going on in the 18th century. Ground beef in a boy. No, not really. So no, I can't think of anything that quite hits the spot for that.
All right. So, Julie Stevens in Super Chat. No message, just thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you so much. Joy Wandry with a dancing doggy, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Noob Thunder, coin for the bartender, LOL. Thank you. More coin in my pocket.
No way.
Appreciate
that.
No
way. Stop.
John Talley, coin for the bartender behind bar. I'm not going to need to do this anymore.
See what happens?
Soon I'm going to sell this Nutmeg Tavern and get the heck out of here. I think that there's probably some more Super Chat stuff that came in, but let me see. And I'm also looking to see if there's a very large debate on spaghetti. Chili spaghetti is definitely a thing in Cincinnati and northern Kentucky. John, bless you, sir.
No.
John Talley is he's putting coin in my pocket and proving me right every day.
No way.
Aaron Howitt, I am from Cincinnati and our chili is delicious, you haters. Sorry about that. All right. Before this breaks out into something terrible,
Chili Wars.
Before this channel turns unchild friendly, we should probably sign off. I'm going to drop the journal in the chat one more time.
And then I got Patreon.
Oh, great.
He's going to drop the journal note if you're interested in the diary of Matthew Patton. There it is. Every week I try to get to the brand new Patreon supporters. And this week, Jan Tratner, James Westerfield, Monica, Meredith Brinsky, Kirkinen Allen. This one is something spelled backwards, but it's Retsoff Nora, somebody like Aaron. There you go. Vicky Stevens, James Neely. Those are the brand new Patreon people, and Patreon is just a way for people to support us in a small amount each month. They get to set the amount, and sometimes we do a few special things with those Patreon people, and I better get that the next Patreon live stream figured out and scheduled, but we'll make that happen.
All right. One of the most important things that can be said in this live stream is I grew up in northern Indiana, and there were no noodles in the chili. But when I moved to Kentucky, in Hart County, and in Bowling Green and Barron County, and Louisville, all had noodles. And that's all.
Which did you like better?
Oh, I don't like noodles in my chili. Aaron, I'm sorry. This can't happen. Adam Gear and Super Chat coin for the guy running the tech. Whatever, Adam. Thank you so much. I think that's caught us up. Everybody's arguing about chili.
We'll do a chili contest sometime soon.
The Townsends chili cook-off.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey.
Mine's got nutmeg in it.
All right, I'm done talking. Thank you, guys.
Oh, another week is over. But, hey, we had fun here in the Nutmeg Tavern. We always try to have fun and connect it with history. And, hey, you guys make the channel happen. We make a lot of content, a lot of different kinds of content, and we wouldn't be able to do it without you. Watching the videos, commenting on the videos, sharing the videos, super important, and just the moral support is truly amazing. It's one of those things that each and every day, I think, all those people reaching out, it is really, really nice. So thank you for all your tremendous support. Thank you, Ryan, for putting up with the bars and all that. We might let him out. Thank you, Aaron. Yep. And thank you, folks. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.